Have you ever wanted to know what provisions you need in a promissory note? Have you ever wondered what other provisions you may want in your promissory note if you are a lender? Have you ever wanted to know what provisions you do not want in a promissory note if you are a borrower? If so, stay tuned for all this and much more. Hi, I'm William Dolan, and this is Esquire Advice, where we explain complicated and lucrative real estate and business topics. Remember, we are not forming a lawyer-client relationship by way of this channel. Always consult your local attorney before taking any action. With that said, grab a pencil and a piece of paper and get ready to learn. Welcome to our episode on promissory notes, with a special emphasis on the key provisions of a promissory note that are important to the lender and the borrower. However, before we dive in, please kindly hit those like and subscribe buttons so we can keep bringing you valuable and profitable content. We're going to tackle this topic key concept style. The first key concept is the minimum requirements for a promissory note. So generally, a promissory note must, at a bare minimum, be in writing, identify the borrower and the lender, identify a loan amount, identify a rate of interest, a term, identify a payment if there is to be one, and provide default remedies. It also needs to be signed by the borrower, of course, but it does not need to be signed by the lender. The second key concept is acceleration. If the borrower defaults, the lender wants the ability to call the entire amount of the note due and not just be able to collect on past due payments. That requires the note to be accelerated. The promissory note must contain express language to make this occur. The third key concept is that the lender wants events of default defined and to expressly indicate that an occurrence of any event of default will trigger the acceleration of the note. The most obvious event that should be described as an event of default is non-payment. However, insolvency, an assignment for the benefit of creditors, bankruptcy, death of a borrower, or dissolution or termination if the borrower is an entity are some others. The fourth key concept is default interest. Upon the occurrence of an event of default, the lender will want additional interest above and beyond the note rate. This is generally called default interest and needs to be expressly described in the note. Many jurisdictions have a requirement that default interest be a reasonable approximation of the damages that the lender will incur from the borrower defaulting on the note. Rate limitations is the fifth key concept. Usury laws set a ceiling on the amount of interest that a lender can charge. If the lender violates usury, it is usually a big problem. In some states, there can be criminal liability for violating usury. In others, there are monetary penalties that can be 3 times the amount of the overcharged interest. In many states, there are exceptions to and exemptions from the usury laws, though, but they can vary significantly from state to state. Since usury laws vary so much state to state and can be complicated, you need to be sure to consult a local attorney whenever you are drafting a promissory note. The other end of the spectrum is that the IRS does not permit parties to make interest-free loans. There is a concept called the minimum applicable federal rate that sets a floor on the amount of interest that you must charge. If you do not satisfy this floor interest requirement, the IRS could recharacterize the transaction, which could cause adverse tax consequences for the lender and or the borrower. The sixth key concept is attorney's fees and expenses. If you are the lender, you want a provision that allows you to collect all of your attorney's fees and expenses from the borrower if you have to take legal action to do so. The seventh key concept is confession of judgment. Some states, most of which are in the Mid-Atlantic region, enforce confession of judgment provisions. A confession of judgment provision gives the lender a shortcut to obtaining a judgment against a borrower and a guarantor too if there is a confession of judgment provision in the guarantee agreement. Essentially, the lender can obtain a judgment by filing a confession of judgment document, and usually there's no court proceeding or a very limited and quick one. The eighth key concept is licensing laws. If you are the lender, depending on the type of loan you are making, and or how many loans in a given year you make, you may need to be licensed with the state to make such loans. As a related concept, there are also state and federal consumer protection laws that a lender may need to follow. Again, depending on the type of loan and potentially how many the lender is making each year. If you are a lender, you really need to consult with a local attorney to determine whether you should be licensed and what consumer protection laws you need to follow. The ninth and final concept we're going to discuss is collateral, or securing your promissory note. If there is no collateral, a borrower could file a petition of bankruptcy and possibly have the entire amount owed under the promissory note wiped away, which means the lender loses everything owed to it. Alternatively, the lender could secure the note with a mortgage on a piece of real estate. Then, if the borrower has the debt discharged in bankruptcy, the lender's loan is still protected to the extent of the value of the property, even though the borrower would no longer be personally liable to repay the note. However, please note that there are many licensing, consumer protection, and usury laws that have different rules when a property is secured by residential real estate, and even more strict rules if the property is used as the borrower's or even sometimes the guarantor's primary residence. Although less common, you can also secure the note with a lien on LLC interests, stock, motor vehicles, and personal property. I hope you have found this episode on promissory notes helpful. Please kindly hit those like and subscribe buttons so we can keep bringing you valuable and profitable content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.